Is Bitcoin digitized gold? That's according to BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. Big players in crypto sue each other, and Binance in the news again with senior executives quitting. Does it spell doom? We discuss all this and more in today's weekly recap. Actionable insights and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes just for you. We'll start with the market update, followed by the new BlackRock news.
Thanks, Leon. Relatively quiet week for the crypto markets. The volumes were kind of down across the board, with Bitcoin and ETH sort of leading or down in a negative week as well. So I think we have BTC down about 3% and ETH down about 5%. So look, zooming out, they're both, I mainly am looking at BTC here. Can it keep above 30,000 is the main thing that I'm looking at. Again, not really too interested in the day-to-day movements, but it would be nice to see BTC hold above 30,000, which it rose through recently off the back of the ETF news coming out probably in the second half of June. But yeah, overall, year to date, BTC is still, by far the best performing asset on the planet so far this year, but obviously off a very, very painful 2022. So that's all for this week.
Yeah, awesome, man. A little bit of a quiet week, I would say, but now let's move on to some of the biggest news in the week. We've got 3 news articles for you here. The first big news is BlackRock has actually come out and they're starting to talk up Bitcoin. Now, Nick, but what did BlackRock say? I'm really interested because I want to know.
Yeah, this is a super interesting one, considering that I think BlackRock were traditionally, and especially their CEO, Larry Fink, used to cast Bitcoin in a negative light. Now they're coming out with the recent Bitcoin filing, and they're coming out with he's coming out with the strongest terms possible endorsing Bitcoin. Even if you read between the lines, even crypto in general, which I was really surprised to see. A lot of the time when you see a lot of these big asset managers talking about crypto, they not only stick to Bitcoin. So we did talk about Bitcoin's potential as a digital gold and as its sort of potential as a hedge against inflation and against sort of currency debasement and devaluation. But he also come out and labeled crypto, in this same scope as sort of the digital gold. He didn't, come out and name any other cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin. But yeah, I was very shocked to see the wording of crypto in him talking about it. Normally, when you see these big people talk, they just stick to Bitcoin. So really interested to see, talking about crypto in a more general sense here.
But I mean, Nick, before BlackRock, they used to say some pretty bad stuff about Bitcoin. It seems like they've pivoted at the moment. What's the really significance of this? Who are they in the market? Are they important at all? And how large of an impact could they actually have on Bitcoin since they're calling it gold now?
Yeah, so BlackRock is most famously the largest asset manager in the world. It's something in the realm of $9 to $10 trillion, I think, of assets under management. And as you said, that it's very significant because they did previously come out and Fink did call Bitcoin an index for money laundering, which was some of the harshest words you can use for Bitcoin to discredit it. And now fast forward, 5 to 6 years later, I think it just marks the threshold that Bitcoin is crossing into a legitimate alternative sort of asset. You don't even know what to call it, what it will be called in 10 years time or whatever. But I think the main headline is that others suspect, that crypto and Bitcoin is going to be that extra sort of asset out there, in the world that the biggest names like BlackRock are, looking to cater to, because they're obviously seeing demand, and that's why they're filing their Bitcoin ETF. Because their customers are crying out, for Bitcoin. So to them, it seems like it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I can definitely see it from their point of view. It's another vehicle for them to increase fees and charge more fees on their clients. And hey, if it's out there, they can get a cut. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be interested. It's just very interesting, right, that they do change their tone because they know it's not going away. But yeah, that's the big institutions for you.
I'd also say as well, talking about crypto there, I wouldn't be surprised to see BlackRock start to release other cryptocurrency products as well. Now he's talking about crypto. This is the one that I'm actually surprised to, I think is a catalyst for Ethereum as well. If that gets more regulatory clarity, I wouldn't be surprised to see them roll out, dive into Ethereum. And if we see that, I think it'll just be another big boost to the sort of asset class.
Yeah, that's right. They'll say Bitcoin is digital gold and Ethereum is digital oil. I think that's the way we're going so far. Sounds good. So, Nick, we'll continue with the giant institutional news. Not Web 2 institutions, but Web 3 institutions. We've come out and they're suing each other. Who's sued who, and what's all this drama about? It's Gemini and DCG. Who are they?
So Gemini are one of the biggest centralized exchanges and crypto sort of platforms that you can buy and sell and lend on. And DCG is Digital Currency Group, which is one of the sort of more OG and oldest cryptocurrency funds, managers, and VCs in the space. They've been around, since the get-go, and they've recently had a lot of trouble with Gemini because they've had over, I think, $630 million that has been locked for the Gemini clients with DCG in a company that was Genesis that filed for bankruptcy in January. So now, basically, Gemini have come out and sued DCG, accusing them of some quite serious allegations such as accounting fraud, lying to counterparties, saying they're not as honest and not reporting, what the correct state of their balance sheets are and loans and everything to that sort. So this was a big one, and I think a lot of the market was anticipating it, but we didn't hear a reply from DCG, and so now they filed a lawsuit because it doesn't look like this one is being settled anytime soon.
Now I've got a question for you, Nick and Matt. What are the actual impacts of this giant lawsuit? What are the knock-on effects for anyone that might be in crypto? I think it could be big, right? So Matt, what do you think? You let me know.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because I think these two entities used to be quite a lot more market share and sort of power over the crypto industry. And I think, this has been, as Nick said, this fight has been going in public for some time now. And this is all reaction to last year's sort of events with Terra and 3 Arrows Capital, a lot of different, collapses. So, I think if the market has been able to almost price it in, for lack of a better term, that the possibility that these two entities don't come to some sort of resolution. And if you were a proponent of someone who, the efficient market hypothesis, or someone who knows all the information's out there, okay, the market's going to price that in accordingly. You could argue crypto is extremely inefficient still, so that would be an argument why it could still cause prices to, probably we're more talking here about the possibility of prices really crashing. But my sort of gut feel is that this won't really have any impact on markets in sort of the short to medium term. But I'm not sure how you feel, Nick.
Yeah, I know we had a good discussion back in the office when we were talking about this exact thing about whether DCG are sort of smaller in stature now. They're not as big maybe as they once were in terms of in their relation to the rest of the crypto ecosystem. The big unsettling thing is here, you still aren't sure about these counterparties because, you haven't seen the state of the DCG balance sheet. You don't know who some silent counterparties are. I guess what I've seen in the last year or so, the counterparties are very quiet and only sort of come out once a lot of the stuff is being made public, because there may be other sort of institutions that may be underwater that are kind of hoping for a rebound in prices or something to get them out of the hole. So this is the one unnerving thing, but I did see a stat thrown out there that they're still, I think, the 10th, or I think they're 10 to top 15 by sort of, I think, market valuation in all the assets that they hold. So they're still sizable, in the grand scheme of things, but not as big as they once were. So I'm going to take the other approach to that, Matt. I'm probably thinking maybe there could be some silent counterparties that perhaps may be affected by DCG, and I think we just have to wait and find out. But these things may take a while to play out in court.
Yeah, exactly right. If we know anything, some lawsuits do take quite a while. So we'll keep you guys up to date. If we think you need to know anything or take any action over at Collective Shift, you can trust us to keep you updated. But I think for now, Matt, I want to pivot to you now. There has been some news. Binance is in the news again, unfortunately, right? It seems like these guys can't catch a break. What's happening with Binance? Should I be worried first? What's the story, man?
Yeah, so what happened was there was some reports that came out that a few different senior executives from Binance who worked in sort of the compliance and I guess, regulation division, they have had quit, and the reports here are that it was, over a disagreement over how the CEO is, I guess, actioning or responding to the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, which is sort of a criminal federal agency in the US, which there has been reports that for several years they've been investigating Binance, and it's looking increasingly likely that they're putting together some sort of case when that comes out. If that comes out, I suppose technically it's unknown, but I think many in the industry would suspect it's more likely than not at this stage that it is coming. So I think when you do see those departures all at the same time, that's probably the main thing that's worrying. I suppose when you've got someone like, CZ, the CEO, his argument would be, well, this company is so enormous now, you're always going to have turnover of staff. And yes, whilst this is true, and I assume their compliance department has been working probably overtime the past 6 months particularly, it is just a bit strange that they're all senior staff all leaving at the same time. So to your point, Leon, to your question, like, what does this mean for all of us, just as market participants and enthusiasts of crypto? It's really just another signal. It's almost like it's been another week, and there's yet another sort of, series of news. There was some other things to do with the Australian Binance office being raided, and then also Binance Australia former employees being approached for some investigations, and sort of like a fact-finding sort of, I suppose, tasks, so to speak. So again, it's just another week and just some news coming out about different investigations, whether there is anything actually, illegal going on. We simply don't know that yet. So then what's the point for all of us? Why are we talking about this? It's just another reminder really of just, I suppose, because of Binance's size, just the whole risk that it does pose to the entire market, in case something does go severely wrong. Just to put it in context for those of you unaware, when FTX went down and hit the headlines all around the world, they were probably the third largest exchange in the world, probably behind Coinbase and Binance. Binance by far is the biggest. So that sort of gives you an appreciation of just the sheer small possibility that something extremely bad goes on. It would have drastic impacts on sentiment as well as crypto prices, and a bunch of other issues. So I suppose that's why we sort of have been bringing it up, and it's sort of hard to ignore at this stage the amount of different countries that are investigating them and all of that. So I'm not sure, Nick, if you have any other ideas of why you should be communicating this or almost signaling it to our listeners.
Yeah, especially learning from the past with FTX. I remember seeing similar sort of headlines or even some key figures leaving, I think, FTX in those months, or, which all made sense after sort of the collapse happens. And so the one thing I've learned probably in the last year and a half and seeing the market at the moment is sort of when there is smoke, there is some, it's a high chance there's fire. And from Binance, there just appears to be a lot of smoke, if to put it friendly, where they're even being investigated in France and Canada. And then we saw them sort of being ordered to cease their operations in Belgium, as we spoke about in the last podcast. So if you put all the pieces together, it is looking pretty ominous. And as me and Matt have talked about it, criminal sort of charges do appear more likely than not. Obviously, we're not, lawyers or anything to that regard. We're just sort of speculating on what we're seeing in the market at the moment. And so it's just, if that does happen, there's obviously going to be a mass panic in the market, and a lot of people would be very confused. And I think that's what is important, just to sort of, you do see it coming, just be able to understand that it's not out of the realm, but then also to prepare yourself. And potentially, if that does trigger a very negative market reaction, you do remember, I guess, the long-term value of this thing, and that BlackRock have started to, file Bitcoin ETFs. We're seeing their CEO compare crypto and Bitcoin to digital gold and talk about how it can revolutionize finance. So it's not forgetting those key things in amongst what could be a very tumultuous couple months if that does eventuate.
Yeah, I like the headspace that you guys are at. You got to think about the long term and not right now. I mean, you got to protect yourself against Binance so far. So at Collective Shift, we always say, not your keys, not your coins, right? You shouldn't be just keeping your coins on Binance. And if you come over to the Collective Shift platform, we have a resource, a comprehensive guide to teach you and educate you on how to store your crypto. But yeah, that sounds good. I like the way you guys see the whole market, and it could affect the market in the short run, but overall, in the long term, Bitcoin, next 10 years, that's what I'm looking at, man. That's what I'm looking at. So I think we've got some other small news that we should probably let you guys know about. There's some really small Circle launched a wallet as a service product. It's called Circle Programmable Wallets. It's something kind of new out there. So it's going to be making the user interface a little bit better for you. But that's a kind of a small news story. We'll cover it when it becomes a much larger later on in the time that and we'll cover it later on down the road if it becomes a much larger story. So for now, I want to go and talk about the rapid fire. What are we seeing in the market that was overappreciated or even underappreciated at the moment? So Matt, I know you had something you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, sure. There's this monthly report that's very popular that comes out from ARK. So they're one of the largest sort of, I guess, tech investment funds and other sort of innovative areas. They have a crypto team, have done for more than 5 years now. And the latest monthly Bitcoin report, they came out and put forth that their findings that nearly 70% of the circulating supply of Bitcoin. So I think at the moment there's between 18 and 19 million Bitcoin that are out there that have been mined of the maximum supply of 21 million. They said nearly 70% of that 18 to 19 million has not moved. So it has not moved those, I suppose, Bitcoin that people have purchased. They haven't moved for at least 12 months. Why does this matter? What does it mean? Well, probably one, I guess, sort of clear, obvious takeaway, or at least to me, is that there are a lot more, I suppose, high conviction holders of Bitcoin these days. And people who, just what we're talking about, see sort of the long-term potential of this very, very new asset in the grand scheme of things. So when you're talking about nearly 70% of the circulating supply, that makes me pretty surprised, pretty excited when you're talking about, the fact that these past 12 months have been pretty tumultuous for the space, and yet so many of those people out there haven't sold their Bitcoin. So sure, who knows what would happen if the price of Bitcoin doubled, for example. I'm sure there'd be some of those that would take profits, but at least for the time being, that is something I saw in the past week that I didn't really see too many people talking about. So wanted to put that out there and share it with you today.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. That does make me feel pretty bullish, if I do say so myself. And you do say 18 million out in circulation, but let's not forget all the lost coins that have not been touched.
That's it.
We're kind of estimating 4 million so far. So we're down to like smaller and smaller chunk, and people lose their seed phrases every single day. So I appreciate all those people and bad luck. But I think, Nick, you've also got something you wanted to share with us, something that was underappreciated this week.
That underappreciated item I didn't see get talked about that much was the current regulation with DeFi. So one of the more smaller DeFi platforms recently come out and said that they are halting their liquidity pools and their pairs in their DeFi platform and any new products because of an ongoing SEC investigation. So the project here is BarnBridge, which I think got launched a couple of years ago. And so they're just like one of the first to come out and really talk about the pressure they're facing from the SEC and going as far to close a lot of their products. And now there's others, such as I think Fade Protocol, which is another smaller DeFi platform, but their Discord got taken over by, I think, some US regulators due to an ongoing court case. So this is something that I'm sort of seeing and anticipating more of, especially as these DeFi platforms kind of face the full brunt of potential regulation. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's really crazy, isn't it? These DeFi protocols facing regulation and being sued from one side, but then they also end up facing hacks and black hat hackers out there. And thanks for sharing that, Nick. Just really stuns me how much under attack we kind of are. This brings me to my thing, which is underappreciated, was the multi-chain hack. Now, I wonder if people heard about this. This is just in July, a couple of days ago, I think 2 days ago. Multi-chain, it is a bridge. And what that does is it helps you take crypto from one blockchain onto another. They don't usually live on each other's blockchain, but because of a bridge, it allows you to move one from the other. This opens up a whole bunch of attack vectors for hackers to come in and actually exploit the system. So if this was a hack, $125 million is gone. So, bridges and hacks in crypto, it's the go-to target. Remember, use bridges with caution. And if you can avoid it, just hold the native token. Try not to bridge. Don't use any wrapped versions, I think. And at the end of the day, the stablecoin issue is Circle and Tether ended up freezing USDC on the other side, which also brings about, centralization talk and decentralization talk. So for me, I just feel like we're getting attacked from one end to the other. But we'll get through this. We're here for the long run. And then I remember that Matt said Bitcoin, 70% hasn't moved in a whole year. And it brings me back to Bitcoin. No kind of bridge exploits, nothing to worry about there. But I'll leave it there. That's something I had.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, Leon, I think bridge hacks account for about 70% of the total cryptocurrency that is stolen and is exploited. So it's by far the highest attack vector and highest chance of cryptocurrency being lost. And that's, I think once we get a lot of these attack vectors fixed, it makes me really kind of optimistic about the industry, considering that it's a pretty dire state and really just adds to the risk factors of cryptocurrency when you're using all these different bridges. And hopefully we can see this get developed a whole lot more. And I know Circle is creating their own sort of secure stablecoin sort of platform that reduces some bridge risk. So hopefully there'll be a lot of upgrades to come.
Yeah, and I'm excited for these upgrades because the way I see it, it's about Darwinism, right? Yes, we are under attack, but we will evolve to be stronger. And over a period of time, new products and new releases will come out. They'll just make it much safer. This is how we get the next billion people on board. So thanks for sharing that, Nick. I feel the same way you do. But I think that's a wrap for today, my friends. If you're listening on the podcast or on YouTube platform, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe, as well as leave us a comment. So if you're looking for more insights, you've got to be sure you check out the revamped Weekly Shift newsletter. Provides free, actionable insights and markets updates every Friday. Subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter. We will see you very soon.